All right. Well, let's go ahead and kick off tonight's Caregiver 411. We're honored to have a good friend of mine, Linda Bunk, joining us tonight. We are tonight talking on affliction to blessings, and I'm going to defer to Linda to tell everyone about herself. Amazing lady, and honored to have her here. I've known uh, Linda, oh gosh, what, maybe 3, 4 years now. Kind of we've crossed our paths on the talking circuit for disability ministry, and everything. She has an amazing heart and has put together some great things. So before we get going, let me just open us in prayer, and then I'm going to hand things off to Linda. So let's pray. Our gracious Heavenly Father, God, just thank you so much for this day. We praise you for all that you do, and God, just thank you for all that you do in providing for us. I pray that you help us in being better parents, better caregivers, and Lord, just to help remind us that even when things are going rough and we're having those afflictions, we can be turning to you through prayer and God, my life is a living, you know, example of how you've had afflictions in my life that truly have become blessings. And God, just bless our time together now, and we pray this in your great and holy name. Amen. So, with that, let me introduce my dear friend Linda. Linda, thank you so much for joining us. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so I am I live in outside of Washington DC, about 20 minutes in Virginia. I have bipolar and Asperger's. I was born in 1970, and at first they diagnosed me with hyperactivity because I only slept 2 hours every 12-hour period as an infant. So my mom had a lot of fun. By the grace of God, I was held back twice because they told my parents to institutionalize me because I wouldn't learn. Um, they were wrong. My mom wanted to keep me, my dad did not. Um, and I graduated 2 years later. I went on to get a bachelor's degree, and I have an MFA from a private art school. I'm actually a fine artist. I show artwork all over the United States. My thesis project did deal with my mental health. I got refrigerator doors, and I had frames fabricated and bolted them to the wall. And when you opened it, it looked like it was filled with medicine bottles. I found out you can just buy medicine bottles. Which a lot of people like, you're a photographer. How did you graduate? Not with photography. Well, I like to do installation based. At first, I was going to school to be an architect. I was foolish that thought I could go to Carnegie Mellon, and I didn't even get this class. I had a mental health breakdown and come home and went just locally. I have no student debt, thank goodness. I was living in Maryland, and since I had a disability, the Department of Education of Maryland paid for my undergrad, as long as I went to a Maryland school. My other one was through scholarships. I've traveled mission trips. I've been to Ukraine 30 plus times. I've been to the country of Georgia. I've been to Latvia, Estonia. I do a lot of mission work now in Germany and Poland. Um, I'm the last person you would think would be serving that much in Ukraine. At first, I was serving orphans, then I served the elderly, and then I started serving the disability community, which they are, their parents are facing the same thing my parents faced. Institutionalize this child, they'll never get better. I go there, they see I have a car, I live in an apartment, I have a job, and I'm functioning in the world. But it took a long time to get here. I didn't really start living as an adult until I was 50. I either lived with my mom or my sister. I was like a teenager. I just spend money on stupid stuff. I didn't have to worry about paying rent or heat or buying food. My sister or my mom did, you know. Um, I did photography, but I really didn't have a serious job. I moved to Virginia, and my friend, he's an architect. I work for him. I I basically get to spend other people's money. I get to help them pick out their selections, like appliances to stairs to whatever. So it's kind of fun. But it is really hectic trying to make sure we get all this done. Um, so, but since he's a Christian, he's also spoke at disability in the church. Um, he gives me the flexibility to be able to serve, which I love. But what I want to talk to you tonight is I created this blessings journal. And what I created this from is during the pandemic and at other times, I started writing my blessings out every night. And I realized doing this exercise allowed me to refocus on my blessings and not my afflictions. And at a certain point, I don't see bipolar and Asperger's as an affliction. It's a blessing from God because everything that comes from God is a blessing. Um, it may be hard at times. I've been in the hospital 7+ times um, for bipolar and some trauma stuff, but it's all in God's timing. Like me going to the hospital prepared me to serve in Ukraine and stay in a guest room at the orphanage because it was a lot like the institution I was in. Um, the way the beds looked and everything, it was so weird. And I was like, well, you never know what God will use. You know, as caregivers, you never know what God will use. He gives us stories that we can laugh at. I mean, there's a lot of stories. My mom was my primary caregiver. My mom was the one that fought for me to have a proper education. They had no special education in my school system until I came there because of my mom. My mom has problems reading and writing, but she fought enough for me that I'm in a better footing. And that is a blessing, but there was a lot of hardships. But we had a lot of times of laughing at some of the crazy stuff. I was always in the emergency room. I mean, they knew my name when I came in there. Like, how you doing, Linda? They knew my dad's name. He was a mechanic, so it was like either I or my dad was in the emergency room for who knows what. One time a nurse passed out because I cut my hand real bad. But we laugh at these things now. Um, just I don't know how my mom. She had two other children. My sister's older, my brother's younger. I don't know how she got through this. My parents did divorce when I was in middle school. My father became a believer after that. Sometime after that, I became a believer. He used to drag me down to the League of North Conference. I was like, Dad, I don't want to see all these old white dudes. So it was like R.C. Sproul, John MacArthur. They were really funny. Um, now I appreciate that. Um, but we never know what a blessing is until we start taking some time at the end of the day, writing them out. So I gathered up some of these exercises that I found in different locations to help people refocus on these and start. I know it's hard when your parents or you're taking care of your parents. My mom is now being cared for by my sister, and it's hard. It's a lot more laundry. My mom's not always nice um, because of her dementia. Um, you get frustrated because my mom just wants to lay in the bed, you know, and my sister needs. I took her to Denver to have some rest. and her two daughters help out, but it's, understanding that there is a blessing in this. And sometimes if we don't slow down, we may not see it, you know. And I know it's hard, even for me as someone that struggles and suffers with things, it's hard to remember to pray about everything. It's hard to remember that these things are blessings. It's hard, to have self control sometimes, um, and stuff like that. But I did send some of these to Doc. They're just little journals. And at the end of it, there's pages for you to start practicing writing out your blessings, taking that time. Like, you know, um, my kid made me a beautiful little colored something for me or built me a Lego thing, whatever. Um, even getting spit up on can be a blessing sometimes. I've been spit up on in the airplane and I'm like, it is what it is. When I get out, I'll get this clean. I mean, it's hard for some parents to travel. When I see people out, I do make a point that if I can tell that this kid's probably autistic and the parents are doing a really good job, but it's hard, I go over and say, you guys are doing a really good job. Your kid is, I know it's hard. It's hard. We hardly went out because I was like all over the place. One, we didn't have a lot of money, so we couldn't afford to go out to eat all the time. But it was just my mom could not grocery shop with me. Um, I remember my mom said she had me on a leash, and this woman was like, "Wow, I can't believe your kid's on a leash." And I got off the leash and I ran between her legs at the grocery store, and then she understood why I had that. Like at 6 months, I stood up. By the end of the week, I was running. So my mom had a lot of just keeping me occupied, keeping me safe, because since I was always running or whatever, I wasn't always paying attention and I'd get hurt. Um, and that's part of why I end up in the hospital a lot. But I did, as a child, I didn't appreciate certain things. But when I got older and saw, like, I wouldn't be educated without my mother because she fought for special education to be in Carroll County, Maryland. It was in Montgomery County, Maryland, but not Carroll County, Maryland, where we lived. She fought for me to be in classes because when a teacher heard I had a disability, like a learning disability, they didn't want me in their class. Oh, mom's like, no, she's staying in your class. And that one teacher, at the end of the semester, she told my mom what a blessing it was for me to be in her class. The impact that I had working hard. It was a writing class. Writing was hard for me. Um, and she was a very like strict teacher. Um, but you never know, as I said, what is a blessing, you know? A lot of people think it's like the good stuff, but sometimes the stuff that we go through, it teaches us something about our conditions or what we're doing. Like a friend of mine's daughter, she was in a drowning accident. I went down to the hospital and they let them stay at the family house because they lived far away. Her daughter was hooked up to all kinds of stuff. And I walked over with my friend, Kim, and she got in her room and she wanted something to drink. And I noticed that they had a water cooler that could make hot water. And then I'm like, I wonder if they have tea. So I found the tea, I found what she liked, and I took it to her room. And it was months later, she said that little thing of me making her tea during this time that was incredibly stressful of her daughter in this traumatic accident just really was impactful to her. I didn't even realize, like, most people might have not even noticed that because when you have Asperger's, you see the leaves before you see the trees. And my friend, her husband's Irish, and I know whenever we're over their house later at night, they're drinking tea, usually Irish breakfast tea or whatever. And I was like, this is, she'll like this. And, Kasaya was in a vegetative state for 5.5 years. She passed away. I did document her care, and I would say that was the hardest job the day that she passed because I saw how much they were caring for their daughter who she couldn't really move on her own. She couldn't eat on her own. She couldn't do a lot of things on her own. But I do know when she was in pain, her heart rate would go up, and Kim or Mark, the father, would hold her and it would go back down. It was like, you know, somehow she knew that that was her parents. And they carried her out of the house in her blanket to the funeral home people. And I processed the photos and I'm like, wow, they're smiling. Now, a lot of people would think that would be kind of odd, but they know their daughter's in heaven now and she's not hurt anymore. They have two boys with hemophilia, and she never thought one of her daughters would be have this kind of issue. She thought it might be her boys. She has a total at that time 9 children. Now it's 8, only 3 boys, and one of them doesn't have hemophilia. So I'm like, you just weeded that out, you know. And he kind of looks. He's got blonde hair, so we just kid with her, and I'm still friends with her. She actually, this instance, her one daughter went into nursing care. Her other older daughter went into some kind of physical therapy. Um, the other daughter does hair, but she likes to go into the hospital, the nursing home, to do the hair of old people that can't get out. Um, so it kind of changed what they were doing, what they were originally doing, as an idea for a job. And then Kim went into access ministry, and she goes to the disability in the church, and she has such a heart for it now. She also helps me edit my blogs. I write twice a month because English is not my friend. Uh, I don't think it's a lot of people's friends, but it's kind of interesting how your life becomes kind of intertwined with others. I met I was living at my sister's house. I came downstairs and there were all these kids and only two parents. And I'm like, where are all the parents? And the two boys were Michael and Justin were 5 and 3. And they're like, I started playing Legos with them. And they started bugging me about going to church. Like, why don't you go to church? You should go to church. So I went to church so they would stop asking me to go to church. And at first I wasn't really paying attention. I just kind of sat beside Michael, because I didn't really have a lot of friends my age. And one day, for some reason, God woke me up, and the pastor was talking about John 9, 1 through 3. About the blind man, and the disciples are like, "Why is he blind? Did he sin? Did his parents sin?" And Jesus said, "No, he was made this way to glorify God." And I'm like, wow, that's profound, you know? And then when you look at these people that God picks to do his stuff, it's not always these like the strongest. You look at David, he was 14, 15 years old, and God called him out of that pasture to go slay the giant. And I'm sure those Hebrew soldiers were like, what is this little boy doing here? You know, what is he going to do? Is he giving us lunch? I could just imagine, like, has God lost his mind? And then, you know, David slayed the giant, and he eventually was, I think, the only king that reigned over all of Israel. But he just kept on messing up too. You know, he didn't listen to God all the time, and but God had patience with him, like he has patience with us, and more so than anybody would have patience with us. But it's just, recognizing that blessing. Like at first, the Hebrew soldiers are like, and then they realized he was the blessing. He came and slayed the giant, and then he went on to do greater things. And some of the prophets, Jonah argued with God. We shouldn't save those people in Nineveh. They're no good. I can imagine like God's telling me to do something, but I'm going to go argue with him. He's kind of like a little gutsy there, but and then you see it just everyday blessings that you see, you know, walking down the street or helping somebody. Like we're to love. To be a good disciple, we need to love one another. It's all connected. And, it's everybody's mission field isn't is everywhere. It's in your backyard, it's with your kids, it's with your community. Sometimes God calls people to short-term missions or long-term missions or whatever, but we're not all blessed to do that. And I think sometimes, I just went to Ukraine 2010 and I started photographing the kids and I gave them the photos back. No one ever did that. I started getting albums and taking them over there and putting them in there for them. And I gave it to the older people and they were just like the kids, sharing it, laughing with each other. And then my art school friends, they're like, these are real portraits. I never thought of them like that because it wasn't like I sat up stuff. I just kind of shot people in different ways to um to give them a gift of their photo, not something that I would, use as art, as a portrait, but it was a portrait for them as I was serving. And then I started showing these pieces, which I'm going to show you now. Uh, So these are different people I've served. This woman, we were given some pantry goods, and she came out. This is a photo of her daughter. She passed away a couple weeks ago, and she's taking care of her kids. I'm photographing the kids. She comes out. I wasn't even sure if this was in focus, but it's so beautiful. The texture in her hands, the age. She's really not that old, and just this colorful robe. This is a elderly woman in a nursing home playing with the local dog. Is a little boy. Um, this man was an artist who was in a wheelchair, but he gave us wheelchairs for others that he didn't use anymore. This is a woman that wailed the entire time we were there because her son passed. This is way before the war started. This is one of the orphans. He drew this piece for me. I still have this, and I photographed him with this. He drew it on the back of a poster because I don't have much. This woman, she came out, just stood there. It's like, wow, that's crazy. This is a girl in line at orphanage. This is another girl at orphanage. This is a nursing home lady. The sad reality of the kids in the orphanages are they will be put in the human trafficking trade. Um, this is another babushka. This is a young man who probably has something like Down syndrome. He's in a nursing home. But they were all like a big family. This guy used to be in the KGB. I found out after taking this. I just love all this blue. This is a little girl in a village that we would go out. They had no school. A Christian woman went out to the village and she made a Christian school for these kids. and this is the teacher. She bought a house that was owned by a pastor who was murdered by the Soviets, so they thought it was cursed. But she bought that house and she taught the kids through the house. These are the little boys, the kids of the woman, the first photo. But so my idea when I first went to Ukraine and I took these photos wasn't about a portrait for something as art. It was a gift to them. And this is a disabled girl up in Rivna. We did a camp, and these are autistic kids that were at camp. But it, it's just how God leads you. And like here, you can see here's a table full of photos that I printed out to give to the kids. And the other part that God blessed me with, not only with photography, but I started doing sports photography, and I was bullied terrible by athletes. And I got connected with FCA, and I just started photographing lacrosse. And I never thought I would do sports. Um, this isn't so much art as, I just enjoy being able to give parents something that they can't do. Because even if you have the photo equipment, like I have a friend who's a wedding photographer, she's like, I can't photograph this because I'm trying to cheer my kid on. And lacrosse is a little rough. Like this is out, pouring down raining. But it's a nice gift to give to uh, these kids' family. But God was in this, not me. And then so this is Michael, the boy that I was talking about. He graduated. Well, that's my nephew. This is his brother, Justin. He did paint this on the wall there. It was huge. I was like, does your mother know this is down on the wall? Um, this is his sister. She's the one that does the hair stuff. But I just enjoy taking portraits in unusual, not your typical, like, this is my boss's son. He's a violinist, but he's also a soccer player. But he hates being the center of attention. We're actually in a parking garage. So this is a mission trip we did into Poland. This young man here has a disability. He sings so beautifully. When you hear him sing, you don't see his disability. This is my boss and his wife, and it was just a great time. This is his grandmother. His mother passed away, and he lives with his grandmother. So I call her Granny. Like, come on, Granny, let's go. So this is him in his neighborhood in Ukraine, walking to school. We did a little video day of life of, this is one of the autistic kids. He just sat up there and posed like this. At the camp, I took photos for the parents because the kids don't like cameras in their face. So I used a longer camera so they weren't so intimidated by that. This is another one of the kids at the camp. This kid, he's at the camp, but I'm standing further away. So I was able to bless them with these photos of their kids, that are more closer to traditional portraits. So it's I also do a lot of music. Where was it? This is Michael W. Smith at the Kennedy Center. So that was fun to do, to be able to photograph there. I never thought I would photograph at the Kennedy Center, or Michael W. Smith. This is Carnegie Hall. I never thought I would photograph there. I photographed a lot for my church, as you can see. Um, I love music. I was gifted with the clarinet, but my mother, she didn't want to torture me with practice. Um, do a lot of equestrian photos because it's big in Maryland. So, but as I said, you never know what seems like something wouldn't be a blessing becomes a blessing. Um, I would just go out in the morning. This is where I used to live. This is my friend's farm, and just go out and photograph a bunch of stuff. Here, there's her sheep. Um, I love photographing the sunrise because it's so quiet. This is another friend of mine's farm, and it's just so quiet in the morning. Like the people of this farm, I don't go on people's property unless I have permission. They actually bought this. It just was a beautiful day. Um, so I do like, these when I'm serving, when I'm riding to place, I find unique places that most Americans may never see. This is in Germany near the Czech border. It's, this is actually in the country of Georgia where three rivers meet. So I can share what other aspects of my trips. This is Lathnia. This is their like Independence Day. This is in Vienna. So I just like, this is some village in Germany or Frankfurt. This is in Ukraine. This is a vineyard in Germany. So it's just so nice to be able to, while I'm traveling from place to place, I can have time to like stop and take some nice photos. This is Gdansk, Poland. This is Ukraine. In the village that that's my boss's grandfather's house. Um, this is Ukraine. This is old Soviet style hotel in Warsaw. This is Kiev. But it's just nice to be able to do that too. So people can see different things that they might, even if they went to Germany, they might not see this, you know. So how much stuff is here? Now, I want to talk about this for a minute. This is in the Central Cemetery in Vienna, the same cemetery that all the musicians are. This is a gravesite for 800 disabled children that were outright murdered during the Holocaust in Vienna in a child's hospital. They were not buried until 2002. It's mind-boggling to me. I heard about this, but I actually found out where this was. And I visited there and I found out someone has all the names and all the dates. And I was like, wow. So, like, your kids or somebody like me, if I was born there, this might have happened to me. And the one thing people forget about the disabled is they're the first to go and they're the last to be remembered. So early on, before they ramped up the Holocaust, they had a thing called Action T4, which was this campaign to euthanize disabilities. Anybody with a disability. They acted like they were going to take care of your loved one. They were just going to murder them. And they tested out all the different things on them to figure out what would be most efficient for when they had the full-scale Holocaust. This is how planned out this was. And this cemetery, which is very different, is actually the remains of 300 war criminals from the Nazi regime. And one of the men that is buried here is the one that created Action T4. Now, this prison back here is where Hitler was imprisoned. But during the occupation time, the Americans used this to execute the war criminals up until like the 50s. I never knew something like this existed. Somebody asked me when I went in there, they're like, was it weird? I said, well, it's kind of like a void. I know we're all evil, but these are people that personify evil. It is a historical site. They did take there was names, but they had to take them down because of different things with the pro-Nazis. But so where Beethoven is buried is also where these kids are buried. Beethoven is my favorite composer, so I made sure I visited him. But it's like you never know like what is a blessing, what's beautiful. Um, like this is a museum of the Bible. I've been able to photograph there. This is actually New York one morning, but it's just looking at what is Leslie. One time I went down to DC and I'm like, it's all foggy. But then I photographed this and I'm like, wow, that's really beautiful. As a blessing, you know? But it's just this is actually Georgia. This is old Soviet apartments. It's just like I took my mom to see Graceland before she's got real bad dementia now. So we ate at the restaurant. Oh, that's and then like this is just different things I see while I'm walking down different places. But it's the other thing I do is banners. So this is for a banner. There's a school in Baltimore, Dunbar High School. They have quite a basketball tradition. This is in their gym. It's like 4 foot by 9 feet or something like that. It's huge. Um, I would go down and do senior banners for them because their parents they didn't really have that. So the school would pay me. I would charge them enough for the covering of the material and a little bit of my time. But I would chit chat with the kids. And the athletic directors, like a lot of photographers, are just worried about their equipment. I said, well, that can be replaced. And these kids they're funny. Like this one girl had real long hair, and I'm like, she was a lacrosse player, and I'm like, have you ever got that in your stick? But it's taken the time to like just talk to kids and um, you know, this is my boss's son who plays soccer. But it's just like taking that time to just kind of love on these kids who, live in a completely different world than I do. There's a lot of shootings there because it's in Baltimore, but you know, just talking to them gives them a blessing. But it's just my life has been hard, but I've had, as I said, a lot of different blessings. Being able to photograph at Carnegie Hall, my sons, being able to work with the D's. So there's blind soccer. This is blind soccer. This was phenomenal because to me, if you are blind, that's a pretty difficult disability. this is huge all the way around the world. They were trying to make it bigger in America, so there were like all kinds of people from around the world that do this. And I don't usually interact with the athletes, but I ate lunch with them, and they were telling me like all the stuff that they did, and I'm like, I was dumbfounded. I just like I can't imagine being blind. I have hearing problems, but there was one young man, he was using his cat was a photographer, and they just loved having playing soccer. But this is, you and that was another time, like I learned about a different disability from people, about what they did, how they went on vacation, the sports they played, how they watched a movie, how they read a book, and it was just phenomenal. And I was blessing them by photographing this, and they blessed me with how their life is, you know, because I'm usually just photographing people, not this is actually the German coach for blind soccer. I never knew about this. And my friend's son is like, is that real? I said, well, it came from the US blind, whatever. But they were just, talking to their parents, talking to the people that worked with them. I was just like, I would have never known any of this if I didn't get that job. And even a job can be a blessing, not only because of financially, but you know, giving people something they can't take and being out of my comfort zone, because I have no idea sometimes what's going on in these sports things. I don't follow sports, you know. Um, Wrestling, I have to lay on the floor. I actually do enjoy shooting wrestling because wrestling's a lot about problem solving and strength. How to get out of this position so I don't get pinned. I never really thought of it like that because there's like that entertainment wrestling. And I do more enjoy photographing the little kids because they're just kind of, I get wild about it. But if you want to ask any questions, you know, I don't know what the format is here. Oops.
Nope, you're doing awesome. So that's all great. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, you can unmute yourself and feel free to ask. Or you want to put it in the chat, I can pull it from the chat. So, are there any questions out there for Linda? Linda, that's first, thank you for sharing everything, and for everyone, like Linda said, she did send some of those books to me. So you're interested in that, you know, let me know and I'll get the book to you, for you, for that as well. The you know as you're talking through this, it reminds me, for me, the key word in my life is the word perspective, and that's what a lot of this is, and what trying to makes me think of is when we have those afflictions that happen in our life. So many times we just focus on all that negative and all the things going wrong. But I love how you're sharing, Linda, for us to be praying and find the blessings in there, and that will help change our perspective
It does.
with
I mean, I will
everything.
say that I had a brief time that I went away from working with my boss because there was some tension, and it was hard. And my friend is like, "You're counting all your whatever the bad stuff, like you know." I didn't have a job. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. It was just like just a bunch of stuff just piled up on me, and it kind of dissipated. And then, then my car breaks. My friend, and they're like, "Well, we want to talk to you when you get home." I'm like, "Oh wow." So they want to put a new engine in my car, and I'm like, I'm going to. I was like, I have to get off the phone. And my friend's like, "Come swim with us," because it was the summer. But I go swimming, and I'm like, we were gonna get some hot dogs at the stand, and we ordered them, and then they ran out, and I'm like, "I can't even get a crappy hot dog today." So her husband, who's on my board, he's the president of my board, went and got me a hot dog, and I'm like, "Do you have any mustard?" And she gave me honey mustard. I'm like, "That is not hot dog mustard." Like, but and then she's like, "You're counting all this, like, whatever," and then God renewed my relationship with my boss. I love my job. Um, I don't work normal hours. I love helping the client. I love researching this stuff. I know it might be weird about ice makers and refrigerators and what type of flooring. I just kind of love it. I designed my sister's house. It's just, it's like I got into that trap of, my car is broken. I have to buy a new car. I don't want to buy a new car right now. you know, Money is tight. Didn't start working as quick as I thought I would for my boss. Again, took like 3 months, and it is hard to get. It's kind of like like when you flush the toilet, the little vortex is like you're in that, and you got to like say, hey, And then I got little jobs, and I was very happy for the little jobs. My There's a realtor I work with. He hired me to do some stuff for his 50th high school anniversary. I was like, "You don't look that old, Randy." I couldn't believe it. And, he's a blessing in my life. And it was a little tiny job, but it was still a job. And then, every year I do the football program, the banners, and it's just become a mess all the time with football. But the boys are fun to be around. They're very respectful. FCA is really big in Carroll County, so I don't mind driving up there, visiting with my family, because I usually have lunch and then come back down. And I was able to buy a nicer car. My one friend talked me out of buying a 30-year-old Mercedes. Somebody's like, "Why do you?" Because it doesn't have any electronics in it. It's all engine. I don't want a computer. I want less connection. I don't need an app that tells me my car is unlocked. It's in the garage. I'm like, I don't have an Apple Watch. I just, you just have to like not get in that vortex. Like, you know, um, it's hard when you have bipolar and Asperger's because you get these obsessions with my Asperger's. I get these weird obsessions, and I get this weird obsession with like that Twilight movie. Like, why was that so popular? Like, and my friend's like, what? I said, that movie, I don't even understand how that works, but she's like, you should use this for good. I said, only if it was that possible. And I did get out of it. I mean, I have a great board. Having a community, especially a church community, is so vital to like I gave a talk at mental health in the church about how our church community is part of our treatment team. So you need your doctor, you need your therapist or your kids, whatever, but that church community, having someone that's because sometimes it's hard when you have family. My family, I reconnected. They were at disability in the church, Vika, my other niece Ruth, and my sister. Um, and they'll be there this year too. And it's just sometimes it's hard if your family's disconnected, and that can happen with these kind of conditions because they're like your kid's just a spoiled brat. No, my kid has autism, and there's things that some days it's good, some days it's bad. But those days, even if it's bad, try to look into what was going on, whatever day, if you're a caretaker, whether it's your parents, your kid, your sister or sibling, look at like maybe the sunrise was beautiful. Maybe, you went to the grocery store and they had your favorite like fruit or whatever. I love Rainier cherries. When it's that cherry time, I'm buying them all up. I love them. But it's like just seeing that like little hidden smile from God, which is a great book about disabilities, and trying to keep that inside. I have a friend that's a funeral director. I don't know how he does what he does. Does a great job. And you know, everybody goes to this funeral home. And I said to him one time, I don't know how you keep that hearse clean because you're on this muddy land, but just dealing with families at such a time as because of his relationship with God and his family. And he, you know, it was oh, somebody wants the name of my book. So I sent Doc a bunch of my blessed, they're called Wonderfully Made Journals. And I have a series of books that I'm working on. I need to find a publisher because self-publishing is not affordable for me. Let me pop the cover up. I actually have created a mental health journal. I've created 12 of them. So they're about 30 days. So it's Wonderfully Made Journal. And the first one's a 30-day walk with your identity in Christ. And it's basically like a mental health journal where you keep an idea of your daily routine, what your mood is, if you're drinking, how much you're sleeping, but also there's a mini devotional. So there's a coloring page and a verse. And it's just simple questions like, how does this verse make you feel? How does, at the end of the day, reflecting on that verse. Um, I'm working on getting the coloring pages finished. And hopefully by next year, I'll have a publisher for this. But these are smaller. These are kind of like half a letter size.
They're booklets, that with it,
Yeah,
and they're
this,
really good. And what's nice is like she said, um, it doesn't take long to do it. Uh, it's just a couple minutes, and one going back to one of the things that Linda said, I want to emphasize again too. Um, if you notice what she said when she's had the afflictions in her life and getting in those things, she's also had some friends in her life to help remind her along the way too. And especially as being caregivers, we can get wrapped up, and especially when we're talking with other caregivers, we frequently can get in that vortex she talked about of negativity and talking about all that. So it's important that we put people around us and remember and put maybe even schedule time where we can just take that time out and pull ourselves back and look to see, okay, what was something positive today? Because there might have only been one thing. You might have had the worst day of your life, but just find that one thing. And that's what this all helps you in doing that Linda put together. And so that's vital.
I mean,
But we're,
even when we're out and about, like I know it's sometimes like I have to consciously think because with autism, it's your communication and like chit chat and certain things are like more difficult for me. But I try to make it like when people do something, I always try to thank them. Like if I go out to lunch with my boss, even though he's getting a tax deduction, I'm like, thanks, we got wings, it was great. I was always good about thanking people, like if they gave me donations or a gift. And my boss pointed out, you're not thankful for little things. And I even like every once in a while, I thank them for taking me back and giving me this opportunity again. Because I don't know where I would be right now. It is a blessing that I'm able to live in an apartment by myself, and it is hard sometimes, but it's like you never know. Like if you're going to a doctor's appointment, you may just be kind to somebody or smile to them, and it may make their day better. You know, like just like I said, when I see parents out with their kids, and I can see that this kid's autistic, but he's doing a really good job out in public. It's really noisy in a lot of places. It's hard for kids like that. And I'll be like, you guys are doing a great job. I know this is hard. It, and, I always think that we talk about suffering, but we will never suffer like Christ. he suffered the most for us, and he really didn't get anything in return from us. It's phenomenal to think, and then Christianity, Jesus is the only one that sends us a helper. There's no other religion that we have a helper. Muhammad doesn't have a helper that comes and helps you, guides you. We don't always listen to the Holy Spirit. I could say that. It would be better if he could just write me, Linda, this is what I want you to do today. you know, that would be so much easier. But um, it can be hard. My aunt passed in the summer. I was close with her. She was in her 90s. I never realized she was married to my uncle for almost 70 years. It affected my mom greatly. It's her first sibling to pass. But it's like, then yesterday my sister told me, my good friend who's an artist, she's got lung, she's got cancer in a lot of places. And I'm like, wow, this is hard. You know, um, she hasn't done art since her husband passed, but it's just not getting in that vortex. And like, is some people, they want to put a jar and put their blessings in there, they can do that. I kind of like to journal because I look at it and I notice when at the end of the time that I was journaling daily, I was putting first, thanking God for the way He created me because He created me wonderfully. He created me different. He created me with bipolar and Asperger's and all the other chaotic things, but He also with the suffering, the funny stories, like some of the stuff my mom tells me, I'm like, I don't know how you lived through this, Mom. Like, how did you live through this? Like one day she had the typical we had the typical backyard with a fence, and my mom was looking over the sink outside, and I had this rope swing, and I was swinging my arm in it, I had my hips in it. Then all of a sudden I put my head in it and I'm choking. She had to go out and get me. But you know, even though my family weren't believers then, God was there still. I never got mixed up into drugs. If I wanted to have fun, it was just sugar, just get some circus peanuts and have some fun. It's like, why do you need drugs for that? One time I was on some kind of medication that made me feel like had speed, and I told my therapist, I have no clue why you would want to do this to yourself. You know, I just I couldn't sit still. I felt like I had electricity in my body. But it's just finding those blessings, like, my friend that had the daughter that drowned, I also would send her cards through the mail every once in a while because people don't get cards as much anymore. Was it like, I don't know how much postage is anymore, but since people don't get cards, it's kind of nice to send a card. You know, I still enjoy getting cards. But it's
So it's not just us finding the positive and the blessing in our life, it's helping others to find that and help them do that too. And so
yes,
one other thing I want to make sure, we're coming up on our time.
sorry,
I also want everyone to know about your blog, Abnormal Missionary. Can you tell everyone how to find that and connect with
yeah,
you, Linda?
yeah. So
So you do a great job with your blog, so let them know
yeah,
about that.
I blog twice a month, and so this is my blog. I I blog on different things. Like sometimes it's personal, like this one called swimming. It's about having suicidal thoughts. Um, I struggle with that a lot. And one night this just all came out, and I was like, it's very raw if you read it, but it allows people to get into kind of a different world that they might not know. Um, s- but it's and also September is Suicide Prevention Month,
Right.
And I just write sometimes I write stuff on fathers. I'm really tired of awareness months because I'm like, I think everybody's aware of this stuff. What we really need is more acceptance and more belonging
Yep.
for, a whole realm of people. Um, you know, it's just just write all kinds of different things. Some of these, this is my talk from Disability in the Church. That's actually me. I still have this poo. But I just like I hate Autism Awareness Day. I'd rather call it Autism Awesomeness Day. Um,
So again, you can go to abnormalmissionary.org
yeah,
to find her blogs and that. But Linda, I want to thank you for taking time and sharing with us and being transparent, being open. I think it's been great. We'll be back again next month. Thing I'll always throw out to everyone, if there's a topic or any particular speaker you're interested in having for our Caregiver 411, just let Amy and myself know. If you haven't met Amy yet, she's on here as well, that she's our activities director. So just let us know. You can send us an email at info@soarspecialneeds.org, and we'd love to get that set up. We haven't scheduled the actual speaker for next month yet. And then we will take off November and December because it falls on Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we won't meet those 2 months. And so we'll do October and then we'll pick back up in January.
and I
But
did I did send Doc a bunch of the blessing journals, so you
yes,
can either contact him or if you go to my website, you can send me a message and I can mail it out to you because they're just little small journals. But it's been quite a nice time with you guys. I hope that some of this stuff is impactful to you. It is, I will say, it's not easy always focusing on blessings, but it can be very life changing, you know. So,
yeah, absolutely. So it definitely helps change that perspective and helps you have a better day and an outlook on things. So again, Linda, thank you so much. And we'll see everyone next month. You all have a blessed evening and week. God bless. Thanks again,
thank
Linda.
you.